Michael Jackson, the king of pop, was a beloved icon, but beneath his gentle image burned fierce rivalries and bitter grudges. From public feuds to private betrayals, he clashed with some of music's biggest names, shocking fans who saw him as a unifier. These conflicts, fueled by jealousy, business deals, and personal slights, reveal a side of Jackson rarely discussed. Some say he was wronged. Others claim he was too sensitive. Here are 8 musicians Michael Jackson reportedly hated, exposing the drama behind his legendary career. Number 7. Prince. Michael Jackson and Prince were the biggest pop stars of the 1980s. Both were talented, and fans often compared them. This created a rivalry that led to some bad feelings. Michael didn't like being compared to Prince. He once said, "I don't like to be compared to Prince at all." He saw Prince as a competitor, not a friend. Their issues started early and grew over time. One key moment was in 1983. Both performed at a concert with James Brown, a legend they both admired. Michael went first and gave an amazing performance. Prince followed but had an accident. He tried to swing on a prop but fell off, looking clumsy. Michael thought this was funny and mocked Prince, saying he made a fool of himself. Michael even tried to buy the video of Prince's fall to keep it from being shown. This showed how much he wanted to outshine Prince. Another incident happened when Michael wanted Prince to sing on his song Bad. Michael sent Prince the track, but Prince didn't like it. The song started with the line, "Your butt is mine," and Prince thought it was strange. He asked Michael, "Who's singing that to who?" Prince refused to do the song, which annoyed Michael. Later, at a meeting, Prince called Michael Camille, a name that was an insult. Michael didn't like this at all. Their rivalry wasn't just about music. Michael and Prince had different styles. Michael was polished and focused on big performances. Prince was bold and experimental, often playing multiple instruments. Fans and the media fueled their competition, which made things worse. Michael wanted to be the king of pop, and Prince's success challenged that. There were other moments of tension. In the 1980s, they both released huge albums, Michael's Thriller and Prince's Purple Rain. Both were massive hits, and the competition was intense. Michael felt pressure to stay on top. He didn't like that Prince was seen as equally talented. Some say Michael was jealous of Prince's ability to play instruments, since Michael relied more on producers. Despite their issues, there was some respect. Prince once said Michael was a genius, and Michael admired Prince's creativity. But their egos kept them apart. They never became friends, and their rivalry lasted years. Michael's comments about Prince were rare, but when he spoke, it was clear he didn't like him much. The media played a big role in their feud. Stories about their competition sold magazines, so reporters exaggerated their dislike. Fans also took sides, which added to the tension. Michael was private, but he couldn't escape the spotlight. Prince was more outspoken, which sometimes made Michael feel attacked. In the end, their conflict was about being the best. Michael wanted to be number one, and Prince was a threat. Their personalities didn't mix well either. Michael was shy and sensitive, while Prince was confident and bold. This made it hard for them to get along. Their rivalry is one of the most famous in music history, and it shaped how people saw them both. Number 6. Paul McCartney. Michael Jackson and Paul McCartney seemed like friends at first. They worked together on 2 songs, The Girl Is Mine in 1982 and Say 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 in 1983. Both were hits, and fans loved seeing them collaborate. But their relationship fell apart because of a business deal that hurt Paul deeply. The problem started in 1985. Michael bought a company called ATV Music Publishing, which owned the rights to many Beatles songs. Paul had wanted to buy it for years because the Beatles' music was his legacy. He had even taught Michael about music publishing and how valuable it was. Paul thought they might buy it together, but Michael acted alone. He paid $47.5 million and got the catalog. Paul was shocked and felt betrayed. Paul said Michael's move was dodgy. He thought it was unfair that Michael used what Paul taught him to take something so personal. The Beatles' songs meant everything to Paul, and now Michael controlled them. This caused a huge rift. Paul stopped talking to Michael, and their friendship ended. Michael didn't see it as personal. He loved the Beatles and saw the purchase as a smart business move. He didn't think Paul would be so upset. But for Paul, it was like losing a piece of his heart. He tried to talk to Michael about it, but Michael didn't budge. This made Paul even angrier. The tension wasn't just about money. Paul felt Michael broke his trust. They had worked closely, and Paul thought they were friends. Michael's decision showed he cared more about business than their bond. Paul later said he wished Michael had at least called to explain. Over time, the issue grew bigger. Paul had to pay Michael to use his own songs, which felt humiliating. Fans noticed the strain too. When Paul spoke about Michael, he sounded hurt, not angry. Michael stayed quiet, which made him seem cold to some. Their conflict wasn't about music, but about loyalty. Michael admired Paul's talent and loved the Beatles. He didn't mean to hurt Paul, but his actions did. Paul couldn't forgive him, and they never worked together again. The ATV deal became a famous example of how business can ruin friendships in music. Number 5. Jermaine Jackson. Michael Jackson and his brother Jermaine Jackson shared a complicated relationship that was marked by love, rivalry, and deep-seated tensions. They grew up together in Gary, Indiana, as part of a large musical family. Both were key members of the Jackson 5, a band that became a global sensation in the 1970s, with hits like I Want You Back and ABC. Michael was the youngest and the standout star, his voice and charisma stealing the spotlight. Jermaine was older and also talented, but he often lived in Michael's shadow, which created friction that lasted for decades. As the Jackson 5 rose to fame under Motown Records, Michael's role as the lead singer became more prominent. Jermaine had his own strengths, including a smooth voice and songwriting skills, but the world focused on Michael. This dynamic planted the seeds of jealousy. When Michael launched his solo career with albums like Off the Wall, 1979, and Thriller, 1982, he became the biggest star in the world. Jermaine also tried a solo career, releasing albums like Let's Get Serious, 1980, which had some success but never matched Michael's global impact. The gap in their achievements widened, and Jermaine struggled to accept it. Their sister, LaToya Jackson, wrote in her autobiography that Jermaine was deeply jealous of Michael's success. She described how Jermaine felt overshadowed and resentful as Michael's fame grew. This wasn't just about music, it was personal. Jermaine saw Michael as his little brother, but now Michael was the one getting all the attention. LaToya's claims were controversial, but they pointed to real tensions in the family. The Jackson siblings were close, but fame brought out competition and hurt feelings. A major incident happened in 1991. Jermaine released a song called Word to the Bad that was widely seen as an attack on Michael. The song's lyrics criticized Michael's changing appearance, particularly his plastic surgery, and painted him as a lonely superstar who had drifted from his roots. Lines like, "You're not the same" and "You're chasing fame" felt like direct jabs. The song was leaked before its official release, which made the situation even messier. Michael was hurt by this public betrayal. He was private about his personal life and didn't expect his brother to air their issues in a song. The media jumped on the story, calling it a family feud, which embarrassed Michael further. Another moment that showed their strained relationship was at the 1984 Grammy Awards. Michael won 8 awards for Thriller, a historic achievement. In his acceptance speech, he thanked Jermaine, but some people thought it sounded sarcastic. The brothers weren't getting along well at the time, and Michael's tone seemed to hint at tension. Whether it was intentional or not, the moment stood out to fans and the media. It suggested that Michael was aware of Jermaine's feelings and wasn't afraid to subtly call them out. The Jackson 5 tried to reunite several times, but Michael was often reluctant. In 1984, they did the Victory Tour, but Michael made it clear he didn't want to perform with his brothers long-term. He was focused on his solo career and felt the Jackson 5 was part of his past. Jermaine, who had stayed loyal to the family band, felt Michael was abandoning them. This added to Jermaine's resentment. He wanted the Jackson 5 to stay together, but Michael's priorities were different. The tour itself was troubled, with high ticket prices and logistical issues, which didn't help their relationship. Their conflict was rooted in family dynamics. The Jacksons grew up poor, and music was their way out. Their father, Joseph Jackson, was strict and pushed them hard, which created a bond but also pressure. As Michael became the star, Jermaine felt left behind. He was proud of Michael, but also envious. Michael, on the other hand, felt he had earned his success through hard work. He didn't understand why Jermaine couldn't be happy for him. This misunderstanding fueled their issues. Over the years, their relationship had ups and downs. They were still brothers and shared a deep bond, but the rivalry never fully went away. Michael was sensitive and didn't like conflict, so Jermaine's actions hurt him deeply. Jermaine, meanwhile, struggled to find his place in a world that celebrated Michael. Their story shows how fame can complicate even the closest relationships. The media didn't help. Stories about the Jackson family sold newspapers, so reporters exaggerated their fights. Fans also took sides, which made things harder. Michael tried to stay private, but Jermaine's song and public comments drew attention to their problems. In later years, they worked together occasionally, like at family events, but the trust was never fully rebuilt. Their conflict wasn't just about music. It was about love, jealousy, and growing up in a family under pressure. Michael wanted to be his own person. Number 4. Tommy Mottola. Tommy Mottola wasn't a musician, but he was a powerful music executive who played a big role in Michael Jackson's career. As the chairman of Sony Music, Mottola oversaw Michael's albums in the 1990s and early 2000s. They worked together for years, but in 2002, their relationship exploded into a public feud that shocked the music industry. Michael accused Mottola of being a racist and very, very devilish, claiming he mistreated black artists, including himself. This conflict was one of the most dramatic in Michael's career. The trouble started with Michael's album Invincible, released in 2001. Michael had high hopes for it. He spent over $30 million making the album, working with top producers and writers. He wanted it to be as big as Thriller. But Invincible didn't sell as well as expected. It debuted at number 1 but quickly dropped on the charts. Michael was disappointed and blamed Sony and Mottola for not promoting it properly. He felt they didn't put enough money into marketing or push the singles to radio stations. Michael believed Mottola was sabotaging him on purpose. Michael's frustration grew because he had a long history with Sony. He had been with the company and its parent, CBS Records, since the 1970s. He felt loyal to them, but now he thought they were betraying him. Invincible was expensive, and Michael had taken risks with its modern sound, blending pop, R&B, and hip-hop. When it underperformed, he took it personally. He started to see Mottola as the main problem. In July 2002, Michael took his anger public. He held a press conference in New York City with activist Al Sharpton. Michael called Mottola a racist and said he treated black artists unfairly. He claimed Mottola had used a racial slur when talking about Irv Gotti, a black music executive who worked with Sony. Michael said Mottola was mean and devilish and didn't care about artists like him. He even held up signs accusing Sony of exploitation. This was a bold move, as few artists openly criticized powerful executives like Mottola. Michael's accusations were serious. He said Sony didn't promote Invincible because they wanted to control him. He claimed they spent only $25 million on promotion, far less than needed for a major album. Michael also felt Sony was punishing him for wanting to leave the label. His contract was ending, and he was exploring other options. He thought Mottola was making an example of him to scare other artists. Mottola and Sony denied the claims. Mottola said he was shocked and hurt by Michael's words. He argued that Sony had supported Michael for years, spending millions on his projects. He pointed out that Sony had promoted black artists like Mariah Carey, whom Mottola was married to at the time, and Destiny's Child. Mottola said Michael's accusations were unfair and driven by disappointment over Invincible. Sony issued a statement calling Michael's claims ludicrous and saying they had done everything to make the album a success. The feud became a huge story. Fans and the media were divided. Some believed Michael, pointing to the music industry's history of exploiting black artists. Others thought Michael was lashing out because Invincible didn't meet his expectations. The album sold about 6 million copies worldwide, which was strong but far less than Thriller's 70 million. Michael's perfectionism made him see it as a failure. The conflict wasn't just about Invincible. Michael felt Mottola disrespected him as an artist. He was the king of pop, but he thought Mottola treated him like just another employee. Michael was used to having creative control, but he felt Sony was limiting him. He also believed Mottola's actions were part of a larger pattern. Michael had heard stories about other black artists struggling with Sony, and he connected his experience to theirs. The racial accusations added another layer. Michael's claim that Mottola used a slur against Irv Gotti was explosive. Gotti later confirmed that Mottola had mistreated him, but he didn't fully back Michael's story about the slur. Still, Michael's words resonated with those who saw racism in the music industry. The industry was known for unequal contracts and limited opportunities for black artists, and Michael's outburst brought attention to these issues. The feud had lasting effects. Michael's relationship with Sony was ruined. He left the label soon after and never worked with Mottola again. The press conference damaged Michael's image to some who saw him as paranoid or ungrateful, but others admired his courage for speaking out. Mottola left Sony in 2003, partly because of the controversy. He later said he regretted how things ended with Michael. This conflict showed Michael's passion for his music and his sensitivity to disrespect. He felt Mottola betrayed him after years of working together. Whether Mottola was truly unfair or Michael overreacted, the feud was a turning point. Number 3. Madonna. Michael Jackson and Madonna were two of the biggest stars in the 1980s and 1990s. Both were known for their music, videos, and bold performances. They admired each other's talent, but they didn't get along well personally. Their differences in personality, style, and values led to tension that kept them from being friends. While they never had a public feud, Private comments and missed opportunities showed they weren't close. Their story started with mutual respect. Madonna loved Michael's music and saw him as a trailblazer. She once said he inspired her to push boundaries in her videos. Michael also respected Madonna's success. He admired how she controlled her career and stayed relevant. But their admiration didn't translate to friendship. They were very different people, and those differences caused problems. One key moment was in 1992. Madonna wanted Michael to sing on her song "In the Closet" for her album Erotica. The song was sensual and provocative, with lyrics about secrets and desire. Madonna thought Michael's voice would be perfect. She sent him the demo, but Michael didn't like it. He felt the song was too sexual and didn't match his family-friendly image. Michael was careful about his reputation and didn't want to alienate his fans. He also thought the song's title was too bold. He turned down the collaboration, which frustrated Madonna. Madonna was used to taking risks. Her career was built on shocking people with songs like a Virgin and Vogue. She didn't understand why Michael was so cautious. She later said she found him childlike and hard to work with. Madonna was direct and confident, while Michael was shy and sensitive. Their personalities clashed, and the failed collaboration left a bad taste. Private recordings made things clearer. After Michael's death in 2009, tapes of him talking were released. In them, he spoke negatively about Madonna. He called her not nice and said he didn't like her behavior. He thought she was too wild and attention-seeking. Michael said she tried to act tough, which he didn't respect. These comments showed he had strong feelings against her, even if he never said them publicly. Madonna didn't attack Michael in the same way, but she wasn't warm about him either. In interviews, she described him as eccentric and hard to connect with. She once said he seemed lost and lived in a bubble. Madonna was practical and outspoken, while Michael was private and guarded. These differences made it hard for them to relate. Their tension wasn't just about the collaboration. Michael and Madonna had opposite approaches to fame. Michael wanted to be loved by everyone, from kids to adults. His music, like Billie Jean and Heal the World, was universal. Madonna, on the other hand, didn't care about pleasing everyone. She made music and videos that were bold and sometimes controversial. Michael thought this was risky and didn't like it. He felt Madonna's image was too focused on shock value. The media didn't help. In the 1980s and 1990s, reporters loved comparing Michael and Madonna. Both were at the top of the music world, and stories about their rivalry sold magazines. Fans also debated who was better. This put pressure on them to compete, even if they didn't want to. Michael was sensitive to criticism, and the constant comparisons annoyed him. Madonna was tougher and didn't seem to mind as much. Another factor was their social circles. Michael and Madonna ran in different crowds. Michael hung out with people like Elizabeth Taylor and Quincy Jones, who were established stars. Madonna was part of a younger, edgier scene, collaborating with artists like Prince and Jean-Michel Basquiat. They rarely crossed paths outside of award shows, which limited their chances to bond. Despite their issues, they never fought openly. Michael was too private to call out Madonna in public, and Madonna didn't see him as an enemy. Their conflict was quiet but real. They could have been allies, given their shared success, but their differences kept them apart. In later years, Madonna spoke kindly about Michael after his death. She said she regretted not knowing him better and admired his talent. This showed she didn't hate him, even if they weren't friends. Michael's feelings, based on the tapes, were stronger, but he kept them hidden during his life. Their story shows how two stars can struggle to connect. Michael and Madonna were both icons, but their values and personalities didn't align. Michael wanted to stay pure and universal, while Madonna wanted to challenge norms. This made it hard for them to understand each other, and their tension became part of their legacies. Number 2. Quincy Jones. Quincy Jones was one of the most important people in Michael Jackson's career. As a legendary producer, he worked with Michael on 3 iconic albums: Off the Wall, 1979, Thriller, 1982, and Bad, 1987. These albums made Michael the king of pop and changed music history. But behind the scenes, Michael and Quincy had tensions that grew over time. Their conflicts were about creative control, credit, and personality differences, and they left a mark on their relationship. Quincy was a music genius. He had worked with stars like Frank Sinatra and Aretha Franklin before Michael. When he teamed up with Michael for Off the Wall, they created a masterpiece that blended pop, disco, and funk. The album sold over 20 million copies and made Michael a solo star. Thriller took things even further, becoming the best-selling album ever with hits like Billie Jean and Beat It. Bad was another huge success, with songs like Smooth Criminal. Together, they set new standards for music and videos. But their partnership wasn't always smooth. One big issue was songwriting credit. Quincy later said Michael was greedy about taking credit for songs. For example, Quincy believed he deserved more credit for Billie Jean, one of Michael's biggest hits. He said he helped shape the song's sound, but Michael listed himself as the main writer. Michael was protective of his work and saw himself as the creative force. This caused arguments, as Quincy felt his contributions were overlooked. Another problem came during Bad. By 1987, Michael was a global superstar and wanted more control. He had learned a lot from Quincy and felt ready to lead. But Quincy was used to being in charge. He had a clear vision for how albums should sound, and he didn't always agree with Michael's ideas. They clashed over songs and production choices. For example, Michael wanted Bad to have a harder edge, while Quincy pushed for a polished pop sound. These disagreements made the studio tense. Their personalities also didn't always mix. Quincy was confident and direct. He was a seasoned professional who spoke his mind. Michael was sensitive and perfectionist. He took criticism personally and wanted everything to be perfect. Quincy's blunt style sometimes hurt Michael's feelings. For example, Quincy once said Michael's demos needed work, which Michael didn't like hearing. These moments built up over time. Despite their issues, they made incredible music. Thriller sold over 70 million copies and won 8 Grammys. Their work together was groundbreaking, blending genres and appealing to all kinds of fans. They also pushed music videos to new heights with Thriller and Billie Jean. Their success made their tensions less visible at the time, but they were there. Quincy's comments after their partnership hurt Michael. In interviews, Quincy talked openly about their disputes. He said Michael was stubborn and didn't always give credit where it was due. These remarks felt like a betrayal to Michael, who was private and didn't like airing problems. Michael rarely spoke about Quincy, but friends said he was upset by the comments. The media played a role too. Stories about their clashes got attention because Michael was so famous. Fans wanted to know every detail of his life, and Quincy's interviews fed that curiosity. Some saw Quincy as disloyal for talking about Michael, while others thought he was just being honest. Either way, it strained their bond. Their conflict wasn't about hating each other, it was about 2 strong talents with different goals. Quincy wanted to guide Michael, but Michael wanted to be his own boss. Both were right in their own way, but it led to friction. After Bad, they didn't work together again. Michael chose new producers for his later albums, like Dangerous and Invincible. In later years, Quincy spoke fondly of Michael, especially after his death in 2009. He called him a genius and said their time together was special, but he didn't shy away from their issues. Michael, meanwhile, stayed quiet about Quincy. His silence suggested he was hurt, but didn't want to fight publicly. Their story shows the challenges of collaboration. Michael and Quincy were a perfect team musically, but their egos and visions clashed. Their work changed the world, but their personal relationship paid a price. It's a reminder that even the best partnerships can have struggles. Don King was a famous boxing promoter who stepped into the music world to co-produce the Jackson 5's Victory Tour in 1984. The tour featured Michael Jackson, who was at the peak of his fame after Thriller. While Don King wasn't a musician, his role in the tour led to a serious conflict with Michael that became personal and painful. Their issues were about trust, family, and the pressures of a troubled tour. The Victory Tour was a big deal. It was the Jackson 5's first major tour in years, and fans were excited to see Michael perform with his brothers, Jermaine, Jackie, Tito, Marlon, and Randy. Thriller had made Michael a superstar, and the tour was expected to be a huge success. Don King, known for promoting Muhammad Ali and Mike Tyson, saw it as a chance to make money and expand his brand. He partnered with the Jackson family to organize the tour, but things went wrong from the start. Michael wasn't enthusiastic about the tour. He had moved on from the Jackson 5 and was focused on his solo career. He agreed to do it out of loyalty to his family, but he had conditions. He wanted the tour to be professional and avoid controversies. Don King, however, had a flashy, chaotic style. He made decisions that Michael didn't like, such as setting high ticket prices, up to $30, which was expensive in 1984. Fans complained, and Michael was embarrassed. He felt the high prices made him look greedy. The tour faced other problems. Logistics were messy, with delayed shows and poor planning. Michael, a perfectionist, was frustrated by the lack of organization. He thought Don King was more interested in profits than quality. The tour was also stressful for the family. Michael's brothers relied on it to revive their careers, but Michael's fame overshadowed them. This created tension, and Don King's involvement made it worse. A key moment came when Don King gave a speech during the tour. He criticized Michael, saying he was pulling away from his family. King suggested Michael was acting like he was too big for the Jackson 5. This was a public attack, and Michael was deeply hurt. He saw it as a betrayal. Michael had joined the tour to help his brothers, and now King was accusing him of being selfish. The speech also upset Michael's mother, Catherine, who was close to him. Michael responded by taking control. He announced that the Victory Tour would be his last with his brothers. This shocked the family and Don King. Michael said he wanted to focus on his solo work and didn't want to be tied to the Jackson 5 anymore. His decision was partly about the tour's problems and King's comments. It showed how much King's words had affected him. The tour went on, but the damage was done. It was a financial success, grossing over $75 million, but it left bad feelings. Michael felt Don King had disrespected him and his family. King, meanwhile, thought Michael was ungrateful and difficult. Their conflict was about more than the tour. It was about loyalty and respect. The media covered the drama closely. Stories about Michael's announcement and King's speech fueled rumors of a family feud. Fans were divided, with some supporting Michael's choice to go solo and others wanting the Jackson 5 to stay together. The attention made Michael uncomfortable, as he preferred to keep family matters private. After the tour, Michael distanced himself from Don King. He never worked with him again and focused on his solo projects, like Bad and Dangerous. King continued promoting boxing and other events, but his reputation in music took a hit. The Victory Tour became known as a messy chapter in the Jackson 5's history. This conflict showed Michael's sensitivity to criticism. He was the biggest star in the world, but he cared deeply about his family and image. Don King's actions felt like a personal attack, and Michael couldn't let it go. For King, the tour was business. But for Michael, it was about his legacy and relationships. The story of Michael and Don King is a lesson in how misunderstandings can escalate. Michael wanted the tour to be a celebration, but King's approach turned it into a source of pain. Their clash left a lasting mark on Michael's view of the music industry and his family ties.